So a couple of years ago, Janet said to me, I'd like to see your spreadsheet for the job. And I think I've mentioned this once before. And I said, well, I don't have a spreadsheet. It's all up here. That's not entirely true. I have got a project plan in a Smartsheet software program that I've been working on for the last couple of years. It certainly does lack a lot of information, but in there I've got certain spreadsheets, costings, possible timelines for the projection of the project. But the problem with it is that as life gets in the way, business gets in the way, family, all these things as part of my life, and I've been managing quite a lot of things, a couple of businesses and all of that, there's definitely lacking on the project planning side. So luckily Janet keeps me on the straight and narrow, and she said, where is your spreadsheet? And I said, it's all up here. And then she says, what happens if you die tomorrow? I'm going to be stuck with that freaking great mold. It's going to be a bit of a disaster. So Janet's laughing in the background here. So today, it's a wet, rainy Saturday, and I should really be up at the factory doing some work, but yeah, Janet's got me in her office and we're going for it, and yeah, it's going to be a pretty big day of planning. Sorry, yeah, I did ask Janet, because I asked for some help, because now that we've got the boat out of the mould and we can sort of see a little bit of light, not so much at the end of the tunnel, but certainly along the tunnel, we're going to do a massive planning session, and Janet's basically at it right now. I'll just get you to explain what's going on here, honey. Can you explain it for me?
I'm getting you organised.
Ooh.
So we're having a planning session because there's a lot that's going to happen in the next few months, and we're really keen to bring the project to conclusion. I know nothing about it other than sitting around the edge, but I can help Ross plan, so that's the bit that I can help with, so that's what I'm trying to help with. So this is each month, and I'm going to space those out a bit more. I didn't quite get it right, so, and then I'm putting the weeks so that Ross, and once we get down to July, August, it might just be a case of what happens in that month at this point, but we'll try and plan in detail the next couple of months, but just have an idea of what's going to happen in every month, so get a realistic idea of when we're going to finish the project.
So throughout COVID, Janet's been working from home pretty much 5 days a week for a year now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it's been a great thing for us, because Janet lived in Sydney 3 days a week, and yeah, she's ended up with a workmate, and every day, oh, Lexi, hey? Lex likes to sit in here and spend a day, and at 9 a.m. every morning Lexi walks in and plonks herself on a bed and tells Janet when to get to work. And it's quite funny. And then I come home for lunch every day. I'm only 5 minutes away, so I zip home for lunch every day, and she comes out and has lunch with me, and then she's straight back in at 12:30, 1 o'clock, straight back into work, ain't you, mate?
Yeah, so Saturday's a bonus. She's got Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday she's in here with both of us. And
I really want to spend my Saturday in here, but I sacrifice for the good cause.
oh, I'm sure you'll manage it. Gosh. When you're sitting on the sun deck in Fiji or somewhere. Exactly. Righto, so let's get into it, eh? Flip deck mould.
I'm trying to tear from the side for anyone says anything, but it's not working.
Always tear your post-it notes from the side. That's what we just learnt.
No,
and that
I
stops
knew.
them sticking out like, yeah, proverbials.
Pressure.
That looks like a year's work right there.
So that's going to happen in February too. We'll sort this out in a minute. We'll streamline it and just what do you think is going to happen in each month. So tent 2, lounge module, flip deck module.
Starboard stern. Just get them up there and then we can break them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when I posted this planning session on Facebook, there was a few very interesting comments, one of which Jim Kerr mentioned that finally adult supervision has arrived on the hulls. Terry Teflon indicated that I've had a serious demotion of rank. And another one was that things will actually start to happen now. A woman's involved and not just gonna get to it, man. Bullshit. Couldn't agree with you more. All right, that was a bit of a challenge. I've just mind dumped my entire brain onto the wall there. Thank God Janet's good at extracting information out of me.
Not a lot,
She's
is it?
very good at it. The torture. There's been a bit of torture going on here, but it's all there. There's a lot of information here. This is all higher level stuff. It's not, it certainly isn't the detail. So Janet just said, is there any other thing? I said, no, but there's probably a million other things. Oh, there's a few.
We can add. But is
Of course we can add. We're going to be adding. We won't be subtracting, I'll tell you now. But Janet's just asked me if there's anything else that I can think of. After 2 hours, I don't think there is. There's not much else I can think of, but here we go. So we've got over here in February. Would you like to read them out? Yeah, we're going to read out what February is. February is just a shitload of work.
So, before you go down to the details of February, is there any other major step that you think is in that? If you remember something, doesn't matter, well, just what I mean. But it's on the wall as high-level steps, not detail. And we've got a rough timeline. And I guess the one thing I need to know is whether you think that's bullshit or whether it's reality.
I don't think it's... I don't think it's not feasible. I'm just starting to have a little silent panic in my own mind. There won't be any sleep, that's for sure.
Oh, well, then it's
essentially the high level stuff. What I'm trying to do is construct the shell and then put in place where I'm going to need to order stuff so that I don't have delays, because especially at the moment with this COVID-19 situation, anything goes at the moment. So I'm trying to basically get on top of it. I think we've got the basis of a completed boat without the trimmings, if you know what I mean. And essentially now what we need to do is break it down, what I can actually do in a day, because I'm not getting any younger, honey.
We're not doing it by the day, we're doing it by
We are getting older while I build this boat, there's no doubt about that.
I'm more settled now. But
Janet's a lot happier now, it's out of here and it's on the wall. Just all we need now is a big sort of windstorm to blow all this off the wall. But anyway, we've got a bit of a plan.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? That's what I'm trying to take up with the
Yep.
So
that's one big list. Why did I get Janet involved? It was so good when I was up here. I wasn't losing any sleep, but I am now.
You were though. That was the reason I got involved.
Welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls, guys. As you can see, there was plenty of planning going on there, and Janet's using her project management skills to manage me first and then the project second. Look, it proves to be invaluable to have it up on the wall there. I can actually walk in and almost see what's being done on a daily basis, and I can gauge my progress. Now, first off this week, I'm going to deal with the foam core on this Dinette module. Now, I've chosen to use 20mm H80 foam because I have quite a lot of it. But it's important to note with this stuff that you can actually use remnants to make up the parts that you need. You don't need to have a complete sheet to do a 6 foot long piece. You can use bits and pieces of it as long as you cut the edges square and join it correctly. The substrates on either side of that foam is actually what's giving it its strength and its body. So that's what I tend to do. I tend to look for any offcut that may fit to form a section, and essentially that will then be glued down with the Sea-Light foam a bit later on in the video here. One other thing that I keep on harping on about is when you put foam down, you must chamfer the edges of it or bevel it at least 45 degrees at that 1-to-1 ratio. That ensures that you can get the margins of the glass when you laminate it down. You can actually get it down without any chance of air bubbles. So you can see here I've actually mitered those edges, and more importantly, you allow a smaller margin to then be solid glass before it rolls over onto any other edges. You can see that I've done that there. Now that I've pieced together all this foam on the module, it's time to now consider putting the bedding compound down. Now I'm using Sea-Light here. This is actually a Q-cell polyester mix, which is designed specifically for bedding foam core such as I'm using here. Now after about 6 months or so, that needed a really good stir up, and then I spread it on. Now I catalyse this at 2%. That tends to kick it off pretty quickly. It doesn't give you a lot of working time, but I smear it on with a tile spreader or a tile grout spreader, and ultimately what that does, it gives me good even coverage. You don't want to put it on too thick, but what you do want to do is get the penetration through either the contour foam, and in this case it's actually perforated foam, and you can see there's some small white
pores there where it's actually pushing up through those perforations and thereby giving it a really good firm hold down onto my initial substrate. But ultimately, by smearing this on, you then need to weigh it down or use a vibrating roller. Now Vince that let me use vibrating roller has actually taken it back for a while, so I basically used heavy weights here and in the form of 20 kilo drums of resin, and made sure that I gave it some really good hold on the actual on the surface of the module.
Okay, that has taken me pretty much 3 or 4 hours to put all of this foam down where I've needed. I've got a large patch there under the table, and ultimately I'm going to put some aluminium plates underneath there with which to be able to screw the table legs. So the table, there's 2 table legs there, and I'm going to use telescopic ones so I can actually drop the table up and down to use as a bunk. And clearly under here, under the seats here, this is going to be foam here, and obviously I'll probably end up with foam core hatch lids as well for the storage underneath the dinette module here. So they're all done now, and you can see down here, so I've got pretty much still got the weight sitting on this part here, but that's all done now. So tomorrow I'm going to get in, going to let all this set, let it all settle down, and leave the weight on it overnight. I'll come back in, give it a bit of a sand and get going again, and start to laminate this whole thing up. I only need to put 2 more layers on it and she is done. The only other thing here up in this end here, I'll just show you a picture of what this is actually going to be. This is the electrical cabinet and the cabinetry for access in underneath the dinette. So I've got all of my electrical panel and pretty much my inverter and everything sits behind here. So these are doors here, so I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. What I'm going to try and do is establish the size of the doors and actually beef it up and stripe reinforce or strip reinforce around where those doors will go, and that'll aid in the minimising the amount of work that I'm going to have to put into that stinker there. But you know, this thing's almost done. Then I'm going to have to put some lifting mounts in because it's going to be a beast to demold. I've got a lot of almost vertical surfaces here, particularly here around where your legs go, and over there on that navigation table section there, that's almost vertical, so it will come off. It's going to take a lot of work to get it off. As you saw earlier, I've put some high pressure air lines inside there that I can actually access it with the air gun, get some water in it. I'm also going to use a forklift to lift it and get the pressure on it, and then try to bang it off with some wedges. And another good reason for making items that are nice and stiff and not making them too flexible, if you only do 2 or 3 layers, you're going to have trouble getting things off. You're better off to almost finish the job, and this is the first time I've actually done the complete job in one hit because I'm not concerned about lifting this in. I've got a forklift here, we've got a couple of other guys that are going to give us a hand. Plenty of things to happen now, and 2 more layers and I'm done. So I'm working on the final laminate here. This last laminate of 600 double bias gives me 5 layers there, so which basically is around about 4 millimeters thick in the solid glass sections, and 25 mil thick around the foam core here. Now, a couple of things to note before you put on your final couple of laminates. Ouch, just ran into a razor sharp piece of glass. I've got cuts in my shins from walking around the flange of this thing because it's razor sharp, and if I was doing a good job I'd trim it off with a grinder. But I don't want to create too much dust in here. Couple of things, just when you're laying your last layer on here and templating, you'll notice there's a couple of little bumps here, and what that's caused by is pretty much poor laminating, and me getting tired, a mask on, all fogged up, had a gutful 35-degree day outside. You know, a lot of things can happen, and it's very important before you go attack your last layer or every subsequent layer, you make sure it's all smooth. Now, there's only one way to avoid this, and that's to put it all down in one session. A module of this size, I'd need 3 or 4 blokes going full time for 2 days to get this thing done. I've done this over the period of around about 7 or 8 days, keeping with the chemistry, making sure the next day I come in, I work on an area that's still within that 48-hour optimum cure, and I'm using a laminating resin as well, which means that it's actually not going off, so I don't really have to sand. But there are little areas like this little guy here that's sharp, and very important that you sand that off before you put down your last laminate. And I'm going to peel apply this so it's got a really nice finish on it, pretty much ready for flow coating if I decide to flow coat the inside of it, and I possibly will, just to get a nice smooth finish on the inside.
Getting towards the end of this module, it's all about the attention to detail right at this last stage. Now, applying peel ply can be considered controversial to particularly vacuum infusion, composite manufacturers and vacuum baggers. By using that peel ply, I'm really getting a superior finish at the end, and simply ripping that off at the end gives me that vastly superior finish than I'd get if I just left it as a laminated surface. And if I was just going to finish this job without peel ply, I'd have to actually add waxed resin to rise to the surface, just like I would with flow coat, to finish the job. But peel ply negates that need. I also weighed up the cost of using peel ply. Typically a roll of peel ply, all things considered, would be around similar to the amount of sanding discs I'd probably go through finishing this job off. So it does actually pay off in my books, and as you can see, I spend a lot of time on that final detail. What we don't want to happen is for Janet and myself to stick our hand inside this hatch here and grab hold of a sharp dag that could have been circumvented by just doing the job correctly. Thanks once again for joining me this week, guys. A lot of laminating in this one and a lot of work on this module. I know it's been going on for a few weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share it out to your friends. And I'll see you next week on Life on the Holes. Catch ya.